So this next story is one of those that, first of all, makes you shake your head because you can't believe this has actually happened. But this person, our next guest, has actually lived through it. And it is, unfortunately, a situation that apparently some other Canadians have gone through. So let me first of all give you the background. Douglas Dixon is a Canadian grandfather. He is a former Montrealer who decided to move about 20 some odd years ago to South Florida. And now he has just been deported back to Canada, never to be allowed to visit the U.S. again. So with that as the background, let me say good afternoon and try to get you more on this incredibly, I want to say, sad story, because that's what it is. Douglas Dixon is on the line. Mr. Dixon, thanks for being here this afternoon.
You're welcome. Good afternoon, Aaron.
First of all, welcome back to Montreal. I know it's been, how long has it been, 22 years?
Well, I've come back once in a while for a visit, but for living purposes, it's been 21 years, 2005. Okay.
So you decide to leave here, you go to Florida, you have family, you open a business, everything seems to be going okay, and then what happened? Take us back there.
Well, I had been back and forth since 2005, like I said, and I owned a business up here that I opened a satellite office. It was allowed me to get my visa, so everything was legal. We've done everything legal up to the point where we got to 2011 in terms of my desire was then to stay there permanently. Okay. And my situation was that if I bought a business down there, Tropical Smoothie Cafe, that I would be able to get my proper visa for that company, and then over time I would be able to apply for my legal residency, and then you get your green card, which allows you to live there as a permanent resident. So that's basically what I did. When my daughter became eligible to sponsor us, my wife and I got our green cards, and I was running a tropical smoothie. What had happened with that was it was not doing so well. We were in a mall, and I was having some trouble with meeting all of the bills, but I was struggling to keep it open. We had employees and stuff, and I didn't want to send everybody home. So I was using the funds available in the accounts, and when the government checks would try to go, not just them, but others, they may have been returned. So over the period of about 7 years, they accumulated, and they approached me. We made an agreement to pay them back, and I said, no problem. I said, yes, I admitted that, we were struggling, and this is what had happened. I wasn't denying. It wasn't a theft that I was, taking the money and going somewhere. So they said, okay, fine, here's your repayment schedule. So as I was doing that, COVID came along, and that closed my restaurant because it was in a mall, and all the malls were closed down in Florida, so I basically was revenue-less, and they, at that point, deemed me in default and sent out a warrant. After that warrant was issued, I was unaware of it. I don't know why they didn't contact me, but I was unaware of the warrant. I did an American stop through a McDonald's stop sign while doing DoorDash, and I got stopped, and the police that stopped me said, you have a warrant for your arrest. Step out of the car. And they took me off to jail. I bonded out. I then made a attempt to get a lawyer. It was very expensive, so I decided to go with a public defender.
Okay, let me stop you there for a second and just provide a bit more context here. You eventually, what basically as you described it, closed your business was the pandemic. You're in a mall. There was no mall. The traffic was closed. And you had made a deal with the government at that point because you were basically in default for not paying taxes, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
Correct.
So
Correct.
You make a deal with the government, as many people do, to pay that money back.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Exactly.
How did that go?
Well, that was going fine, and that's what I said. When I took that public defender, we had, because I had the warrant, you had to appear before the judge, so we made the plea with the judge. The judge decided not to adjudicate the file because I said I go back and forth to Canada, and I said I don't want to be stuck at a border with a judgment against me. He says, no, after you've paid your thing and done your probation, you'll be able to seal this file or have it expunged. I said, okay, fine. So I pleaded no contest and just started my payback period. So that was, I believe, in 2023.
Wait, so how much money are we talking about here from the get-go?
From the get-go, it was about, with penalties, interest, and everything, was $32,000.
Okay, that's what you owed the U.S. government.
That's
in taxes.
What I owed. Okay. So on my first day, I had to give them, I think, $7,500 to get it going. So now it was right down to 20-something, $25,000 or whatever it was. So I took a payment plan for 5 years at $425 a month, and I was just doing that. That's what I was doing every month. I'd have one every month. I would have to go down to my probation officer. I'd walk into his office. How you doing? Good. You making your payments? Yep. Okay. That's the only thing you've got is your restitution. Thank you. Have a nice day.
Hold on a sec. You had to actually, even after making a deal to pay this money back, which you were obviously prepared to do, you had to see a probation officer?
Yes, sir. It's a felony, and when you're charged with a felony, they make you do probation.
And is that over a specific amount of money to be charged that way?
I really don't know if the state has that. It could be.
Okay.
Like I said, I wasn't really aware of like all the legal stuff. I wasn't fully aware what was going on in that regard. But so I had to do probation. I was very surprised, but I had to do it. So I did it, and that brings me up to where I started on February 10th. February 10th, I got up. My probation officer had called me. It was for the 17th. He says, could you come in a week early? He says, I got some stuff. I said, no problem. I'll come in a week early.
Without telling you anything other than, could you come in a week early?
Exactly.
Okay.
So when I got to his office, normally he's about 10 or 15 minutes late. It was for 8:30 in the morning. Usually he shows up about 8:40, 8:45. So I'm sitting there waiting. But this time he comes out at like 25 after 8. And I just found it odd because for 3 years he's been late. Now all of a sudden he's a little early. So he says, "Come on." I said, "Okay." So I walk in, and as we're going to his office, I go to turn to go into his office, and then the lady behind me says, "No, we're taking you for a drug test." I said, "Oh, okay." I said, "No problem. I don't drink. I don't smoke. I don't do drugs." I said, "You can take me for a drug test anytime you want. Let's go." So we kept walking, and I walked about another 20, 30 feet. I turned right. And as I turned right, there was 6 or 7 ICE guys. They grabbed me. They threw me up against the wall. Well, they didn't lift me off the ground, push me up against the wall, hands in the air, legs apart, get your phone. How do you turn it off? And I'm shaking like a leaf. Didn't know what was going on. And this is ICE. And, did the search. They did everything. They handcuffed me, put me in shackles, and made me go sit down in a room with about 15 other people. I think we were 16 of us that were caught that day.
Did you get a chance at this point to even ask anything or say anything?
No. ICE will not let you ask or say anything to anybody. They don't provide you that privilege, unfortunately.
Okay.
You'll have You'll have time to do that later. That's what the response will be.
So now you're sitting in this room, as you said, with about another 15, 16 other people, basically trying to understand what the hell's going on because you have no idea what's going on.
Correct.
And what happens next?
Well, 95% of them, I guess, were Spanish. Didn't speak any English, so I'm, trying to find somebody. Does anybody here speak English? And then one guy's partially, "Oh, well, this is ICE." And I said, "Well, what's happening?" And they all shake their shoulders. They don't know either. So they take us from that. We sat there for about 2 hours, I guess, and then they put us in a van and brought us up to their processing center. And when we got to their processing center, we were all shackled and legs and feet, and they started processing us. They take you in a room. Well, they put us all in a room, and then they take you one by one to get all their questions answered, and they fill out your form. Then they would provide us with an opportunity to phone somebody. So at that point, it was about 3 p.m. By then, the only person I could call was my daughter because everybody else wasn't answering their phone. They didn't recognize the number. So I finally got my daughter and said, "Look, I've been arrested by ICE and I don't know what's going to happen from here. Then this is my only phone call. So could you call my immigration attorney and let him know? I'll contact you, the next time I get the opportunity." So from there, all of us are obviously curious with the ICE agents, what's going to happen, what's going on. And as they're looking at your file, the guy says to me, he says, "You've got a little thing here." He says, "It's not a problem." He says, "A few days, you'll probably be bonded out and you'll be fine. You'll be good to go." So they keep you calm, they don't want you getting upset. So from that point, I said, "Well, where are we going?" And they don't answer. They just, "Well, you'll find out." And so then everybody gets processed. We get thrown in a van with the shackles again, and you're whenever they move you or take you anywhere, you're always in handcuffs and leg cuffs. Mm-hmm. So we all get put in the van. You can't see outside, nothing. And we say, "Where are we going?" And they don't tell you where you're going. About 2.5 hours later, they say, "Okay, we're here. Get out." And out we got, and we found out that it was Alligator Alcatraz. It was as simple as that.
So that's the holding facility for people who have been arrested by ICE in that part of Florida.
Exactly. That
okay.
One of them.
Okay.
So they bring us in there. This is probably about 8:00 at night now, and they start to process us. But when they bring us in there, the temperature is like 60 degrees. And they've got you to take off all your clothes, put on their socks, underwear, and that orange jump, two-piece jump thing that they give you. And then they process you. They check your belongings to make sure that, you sign off that this is what you brought and this is what you came in with. Get through all of that. It's about 2:00 in the morning, and they throw you into a cage with a bunch of other people that have been arrested.
So you're now looking. We've seen pictures. I remember when this first opened, people were saying this seems a bit inhumane and the way people are being treated. We heard some stories, and now you find yourself in that situation. There's how many people in there? I read 3,000 people in there.
I'm not sure how many are in the total complex, but in each one of our cages, there's 32, and there's 8 cages per unit. Okay. So if you do the math, I think they had 4 or 5 units. And
so now, during this whole time, here you are, you find yourself, in a whirlwind, basically.
Right.
Suddenly you're at Alligator Alcatraz. You have no idea how long you're going to be staying or anything else. What happens? How many days were you in there?
I was in that particular facility for 9 days. You don't know because they call you randomly. You don't know when you're going to be transferred out. Some people that were in there were already in there for 3 months that we had talked to.
Okay.
And it was about, I would say, 80% Cubans was probably a rough estimate of what the Cuban people were telling me, because they have no ability to go back to their country. So, after 9 days, above cold food, inhumane conditions for sleeping, the noise that the generators coming from the through a plastic tent. So you're listening to that all day and all night, 24/7. You only get to go shower once every 3 days. They go outside. I think I went outside twice, so that was every 4 days. For an hour, you get to go outside. Otherwise, you're in this brightly lit tent, I guess is what you could call it. So
you're fingerprinted at this stage, right?
Oh yeah, you're fingerprinted, your mugshot, everything, and they give you a little wristband. And every 4 hours, all day, 24/7, they come in and scan your wristband. So you could be sleeping, you could be up, it doesn't matter. They come in and you get the...
What's that for?
We don't know. To track people, I don't know. No, nobody can go. It's barbed and razor wire around, even inside. Like you can't.
Okay.
You can't go anywhere.
I don't want to run out of time, but I want to move ahead. So you're there for 9 days. Then what happens?
Then they announce my name. They just come to the gate, the door, and they say, Douglas Dixon. So you get out, and you ask, what's happening? They say, you're being transferred. Okay. So they put us in a thing. We waited there for about 7 or 8 hours. And then they picked me up, and I said, where are we going? They don't answer you. They don't tell you. And I got up to Clewiston. It's called the Glades Detention Center. And it's a prison across the street and a detention center on the other side. So they book you in, and that's where I lived for 53 days. And
you still have no idea why you're there, and no explanation of any kind from anybody?
Nothing until you get in contact with your lawyer, and they give you, what's been going on outside. You've been arrested for this, and they've got you charged for this, and then because they go on the
So you found out that this had to do with the money you were repaying the U.S. government back for taxes?
Yes,
at some point.
It was in Alcatraz. It was, I think, after the 4th day, because you couldn't use the phone for the first few days until your band got acceptable, your checking got. So basically 3 or 4 days. So then that's when you know what you're there for.
So let's fast forward. You're now in this new detention facility, and then you finally make it home. How did that end up happening?
Well, again, you go to court through a Zoom call, and I went 3 times to see if I could get a bond. It was denied. The The initial hearing then comes after your bond hearing. The judge listens to your thing. The judge said, hey, you can apply for a dismissal, and if I don't hear back from the other side, we'll give you the dismissal. Well, They reply right away that they're still contesting. So my lawyer said, look, Doug, this was after about 45, 50 days. He says, 40 days. He says, look, if you don't say you're going to appeal, you're going to get out faster. So I suggest we don't say we're going to appeal, and out you'll get. You're getting sicker and sicker as you're in there. So I said, okay. And then next thing you know, the judge issues me a deportation order on I think it was the 3rd of April. And on the 15th of April, you're on a plane coming back to your country.
But not in your case, coming back to your country, coming back to Canada, but at the same time told you can never go back to the U.S.?
Correct. That's correct. That's what the judge said. You're charged the aggravated felony. And then just to clarify it, Aaron, the charge for the state was just a felony. But because it goes through immigration, which is a federal charge, they declare it an aggravated felony for anything over $10,000. So that's why it became an aggravated felony.
I see.
And when it becomes an aggravated felony, it's automatic deportation.
Even though you had a green card and had gone through the process legally?
Yes, because the federal ICE doesn't care. That has nothing to do with the state charge. And even if people say, why didn't you just pay it off? No, even if I'd have paid it off, I still could have been arrested by ICE because the charge is what they base it on, not whether you're guilty or not. It's the charge.
Sitting here shaking my head as I'm sure so many people listening to this are. Look, I'm going to run out of time.
Yep.
What's next for you? You're here. Your family is still there. You can't go back. What happens next?
We really don't know. It's been so fast. I've only got here on Thursday back to Montreal because they sent me to Toronto instead of Montreal. I don't know why. And then I'm just trying to get my life in order. I have to get a driver's license, Medicare. I got to do the whole thing again. I've been gone so long. So hoping they're all going to come back and hopefully be with my grandkids. But we don't know at this point right now. So.
Is your family okay in Florida?
They are. They're shook up, but they're okay. My wife's having a little bit of trouble because I was the breadwinner, so the kids are helping out and friends are helping out. What an
unbelievable story, Mr. Dixon. I so much appreciate your time. Thank you so much, and perhaps when things are starting to look a little bit more hopeful, we can chat again.
Okay, I appreciate it.
I look forward to it. Thank you
so
much.
Everybody hears the story. Thank you very much, Aaron.
Douglas Dixon, Canadian citizen. Ends up being arrested by ICE, deported from the U.S. to Canada, told he can never go back to the U.S., still has family there. Quite the story. Wow.
Unmistakably Canadian.
It's the music that raised you.
The artists raising the bar.
Hi, this is Brian Adams.
Hey, my name's Brett Emmons. I'm from the Glorious Sons.
Hi, I'm Nelly Furtado.
Made in Canada. The station that champions Canadian music.
Loud, proud, and all yours.
No passports required. Just press play.
Tap into Made in Canada now on iHeartRadio.ca
or the free iHeartRadio app.